So, Zohran Mamdani, how tired are you from last night, which I'm told you were up basically 24 hours?
Yes, it was a long day, but ultimately New Yorkers deserve a mayor that'll hustle as hard as they do. And right now what I'm feeling is excitement and energy and ultimately immense gratitude at this opportunity to be the Democratic nominee for the mayor of the city of New York.
When are you going to go to sleep, if I can ask that question?
Well, last night I think I went to sleep around 4 in the morning.
There you go. And you got up at what time?
I got up at about 8 a.m.
Okay, well, you got some.
So I got 4 hours.
Before we get into all this and the weeds, how do you feel? Not politically, I'm talking about personally. How do you feel about what happened last night?
That was incredible to see what we had built over so many months and what New Yorkers had won. Because in politics, it's very easy to simplify a victory as being of a candidate. But ours was a campaign of 50,000 people who knocked on 1.5 million doors, who made more than 500,000 phone calls. This was their victory.
And no one else in this candidacy, all those people, did anything like that.
No, this was distinct. And I think for a long time we've been told that mayoral races are ones that are won or lost on the airwaves, on the amount of money you can raise for the ads that you can share with New Yorkers. And those are important. But ultimately we believe in a politics of no translation. And there's no better example of that than New Yorkers speaking directly to New Yorkers, where you knock on someone's door and you talk to them about why you've just walked up 5 floors of a 6th-floor walk-up for the 2nd hour in a row.
Or across the entire place of Manhattan, right, which you did all the way. How long did that take you?
That took about 6 hours.
There you go. How'd you do?
It was lovely.
And you stopped where? Food, I guess, right? Or elsewhere?
I did get a slice from Cornet's.
There you go.
I grew up in Morningside Heights, and that was my favorite pizza place as a kid.
Before I get into the weeds again, I'm dying to hear this. What did your wife say about the victory? What did your parents say? I know they were up there.
They were just overjoyed and overcome. You know, there were many of us that had prepared for a long night of analysis, of tabulations, of calculations, and ultimately the night was quite short as it came to the result itself.
Yeah.
And that began with the phone call that I received from Governor Cuomo, where he spoke to me about conceding this nomination, and I spoke to him about the necessity of bringing our city together. And I appreciated his graciousness in speaking about what this campaign has achieved.
And what did he say? What person brought that phone to you? What did he really say?
He congratulated me and told me that it was my night, and that what we had built as a campaign was something that had connected with New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and many New Yorkers who had not seen themselves in our politics.
Yeah.
And I told him sincerely that my focus now is on moving beyond a historically contentious primary and leading a city.
And now people are seeing you because of programs like this, and understanding where you have been through, where you've been, and where you're going, and who you are.
Yeah.
So let's get down to it, I think. You come from a successful family. Mom's a filmmaker.
Yes. Very
famous films. I happen to love those films. Dad's a professor at Columbia. You have a sort of upper middle class upbringing, and yet your politics seem deeply set to the plight of so many struggling New Yorkers who are supporting you. Kind of a throwback, I was thinking, to the anti-war movement 50 years ago.
And I think it's so much of my politics is built on the precedents we've seen in this country of what's possible when we fight for working people. And I think especially in this city, in a mayor's race, I've often looked back at Fiorello LaGuardia as an example of someone who was able to not only combat the anti-immigrant animus of his time, but also deliver dignity to working class New Yorkers who were being denied that. And I was so lucky to be raised by 2 parents who have inspired me over the course of my life, and also with whom I moved to the city at the age of 7, where I grew up.
That's the same mayor that Giuliani says he liked too, right? Do you remember that?
One of the very few things.
Do you have in common? Yes, maybe that might be true.
Yes.
You call yourself a democratic socialist. The word socialist, of course, has been vilified and used to attack you specifically. How do you define being a democratic socialist?
I think of the words of Dr. King, who decades ago said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And it gets to the heart of the matter, which is inequality. And my belief that every New Yorker should have what they need to live a dignified life. It shouldn't be something that they can be priced out of. And that's why at the heart of our campaign is this focus on freezing the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants, making the slowest buses in the country fast and free.
There are in the country about 1,200, people who are just wealthy beyond anything, right? And in 25 years ago, there were only about 40 of them. Now there are 1,200 people who are worth more than $1 billion and much more than that. That has to be addressed at some point because they're not paying the taxes that the rest of us are paying.
Absolutely, and I think it gets to the heart of the matter, which is that there is enough money for a life of dignity for all people. It's just a question of whether we have the political will to ensure that that money is being spent on delivering that dignity.
Let's move on to the ambitious agenda, and I think that's what you would call it. Your supporters call it that. Two of your biggest proposals: free buses in New York and $30 an hour minimum wage. If I'm not mistaken, that's really controlled not by the mayor, but by the state, the ambassadors, and all that, the assemblies that you're a member of. You could have been doing that there. You don't have much control of that, but that's what you're running on.
We've seen that any mayor that has a vision for the city that matches the scale of the crisis understands that it will require Albany's partnership. One of the most celebrated examples of what local government can do is universal pre-K. That was only possible because we had a mayor who championed it and went to Albany to get the funding necessary for it. And I think even when we're thinking about congestion pricing in this moment, that's an idea that, again, needed the partnership of Albany. So what I'm proposing is firmly in line with that precedent, and I've also seen firsthand there's a lot of interest in delivering the transformation of the slowest buses in the country into ones that are fast and free. And we're talking about $700 million in the context of a state budget of more than $250 billion and a city budget of about $113 billion.
Do you worry that you're not going to be able to pay for all that? That's a lot of money happening, right?
I'm confident that we'll be able to pay for it because it's, as you said, that the money is there. We're speaking about a city where we have some of the wealthiest people in the world. We have some of those most profitable corporations. And we've put forward a plan that we would raise $10 billion in additional revenue, $9 billion from two major taxes. The first, matching the state's top corporate tax rate to that of New Jersey, 11.5%. That raises about $5 billion. And the second is increasing personal income taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers. These are New Yorkers who make $1 million or more a year, and only doing so by 2%.
But here's the other reality that we've seen, and you've seen since you've been here for a while. You want to raise taxes on people as they're fleeing the city because it's too expensive. So many people who are an upper middle class, like your family was, are saying, I just can't afford this anymore. We can't afford this. I can't afford it if I want my kids to go to college.
What I have been speaking about, however, is not the upper middle class. It's the top 1% of New Yorkers, someone who makes $1 million a year or more. And what we found in analysis from the Fiscal Policy Institute is that those New Yorkers leave at 1/4 the rate of others. And when they do leave, they leave to other states that are considered high tax, New Jersey or California. And what it comes back to is what motivates their departure isn't fiscal policy, it's quality of life. And that's something that unites many New Yorkers, a feeling that we pay too much and we don't receive the quality that's necessary. And ultimately, what we need in this city is a city government that is functioning effectively and is using every single dollar efficiently.
So much of the money that they're spending come from Donald Trump raising taxes in his first go-around on property owners in New York and so many other blue states. New York isn't benefiting from that at all. Some people would say, hey, I'm not sure I would have bought a house if I knew I wasn't going to have a tax deduction on some of those salt expenses.
And I think it's an example of the fact that Donald Trump is looking to attack not just New York City, but blue cities across the country. And what we've seen is that his single hallmark achievement of his first term were tax cuts for those corporations and those billionaires. And in the proposal I've put forward over the course of this campaign, at the end of it, those 1% and the most profitable corporations would still pay less in taxes than they had before Donald Trump.
And you're getting cheers from that, I think, from a lot of people who are watching this. I asked you about how you paid for them. There was one thing we read recently, Political, saying it's going to cost up to tens of billions of dollars, what you're saying it's going to cost.
So that's not accurate as it pertains to free buses and universal childcare. That's talking about a long-term vision for the construction of housing. And that gets back to the most important issue in this city, which is housing and affordability of housing. Okay. We have said that we need to make it easier to build housing. We've also said that the public sector has a role to play in constructing immediately affordable housing. And that's where we believe we need to invest further so that we can build 200,000 homes across New York City.
Clearly, you've educated yourself about all this. You're not coming in blindly, that's clear. But you're 33 years old. I remember when I was 33. It's a good part of your life, there's no question. You spent 4 years in the Assembly. You've never run a big organization, much less a big city. New York City's budget for the next year is more than $114 billion. That's roughly a third of it is in New York City schools. And there are some who wonder, directly at you, not menacingly, but they would say, do you have the skills to run this city? What have you done to give you the skills?
A campaign gives a glimpse of how one would run the city. And the campaign that I've run has been the most competent and innovative of any in this cycle. It's one where we have gone from 2 full-time staff to managing more than 50,000 people, where we raised the $8 million that we can spend in this race at record-breaking pace. And we've shown that our commitment is to competence, it's to outcomes, it's to excellence. And ultimately, any leader is defined by the team that they put together. And I'm lucky that the team that I have put together in this campaign is one of the best and the brightest. And ultimately, that's what I would bring to City Hall.
And congratulations, and I understand why you're saying that, but Zohran, that's a very different thing running an campaign election, and it's not even the final campaign. Different than running a city. It is different.
I think there is nothing that can truly prepare you for running the city of New York. What can prepare you, however, are moments that you have to meet time and time again, ones that increase in scale and challenge. And one of the most meaningful things to me over the course of this race has been meetings that I've had with deputy mayors and commissioners from a wide variety of mayoral administrations in understanding just what this team could look like.
Have you thought, giving this thing you're thinking about maybe becoming mayor, and it looks like you have a better chance than you did 24 hours ago, do you think about who you want to come to work for you?
I think about it all the time. And I think that's at the heart of delivering on this mandate we've been given about making the most expensive city in the United States affordable, is who you bring around yourself. And it has to be in stark contrast to what we've seen under Eric Adams, where so much of those decisions was driven by a politics of patronage. We have to deliver on a politics of principle.
You could very well run against Mr. Adams, and it looks like you're going to, and a Republican too. But what do you think about this? What goes through your head when you say, I'm going to go against these two guys?
When I started this race, I thought I was running against Eric Adams. And in many ways, I was prepared for it.
And things changed.
Things changed. Yes. They did. But ultimately, the race is the same. It's about making the city affordable. And my critique of Eric Adams then is the critique I have of him now. He has exacerbated a cost of living crisis. He raised the rent on more than 2 million New Yorkers by 9%. He increased water bills to the highest they've been in 13 years. And he sided with Con Edison when they wanted to increase gas and electric bills by $65 a month. This is someone who has put his thumb on the scale against working and middle-class New Yorkers. We need someone who will actually use every tool to provide relief to those same New Yorkers.
And what has been his role with Mr. Trump?
It has been one of collaboration. And ultimately, we've been told time and again that through his collaboration, he could protect our city. But we do not see that protection. We've seen $80 million taken out of a city bank account. We've seen New Yorkers being disappeared and detained, whether in their apartment building lobby or when they're going for a regular check-in at Federal Plaza. And ultimately, we are seeing an example of what it looks like to sacrifice the city in the interest of a federal administration that has no interest in serving the people of the city.
And what is his interest right now in the city of New York?
Eric Adams?
Yeah, no, Mr. Trump.
It is one time and again of seeking to make it.
You may have to do battle.
Yes, yes, and I'm prepared to. And I think for a long time I've said that we deserve a leader who can call the Trump administration what it is, which is authoritarian, and be able to do so while not seeing a reflection of oneself in the mirror. And I say that because for too long, we have seen leaders who are unwilling to fight back against what is an attack, not just on immigrants, but on the very fabric of the city and this country. And I am ready to do just that.
And what is going to be, one of the things that Mr. Cuomo said he could do that you cannot do, he said, was he can do battle with Mr. Trump.
Well, I am very confident of being able to do so because I stand here before you today having done battle over many, many months against someone that I was told was impossible to beat. And here we are. And ultimately, what Donald Trump needs is a leader in New York City that has the same donors as him, which is why that there's so much reporting over the fact that there was a good relationship between him and Andrew Cuomo. Ultimately, what I present is someone who is funded by more than 20,000 people who have given me an average donation of around $80.
I'm going to talk about public safety, if you want to get into that.
Please.
How do you see the role of police in New York City? What is the role of the NYPD in people's lives?
The NYPD play a critical role in creating public safety. And when I've had conversations with rank and file police officers, what I've heard time and again is a frustration where they signed up to join the force to tackle serious crimes. And instead, they're being asked to play the roles of social workers and mental health professionals. And ultimately, that ask to play nearly every role, to respond to nearly every failure of the social safety net, is one that is preventing them from addressing those serious crimes. And we're seeing that play out, where New Yorkers' concerns are not just in crime itself, but also in our inability to solve those crimes. In the first quarter of 2025, only 35% of crimes were solved. And we want to make sure police can actually do their job. I've said time and again, we're going to keep the same number of officers that we have. We're just going to let them actually focus on serious crimes and ensure we hire mental health professionals and social workers to respond to those crises.
Okay, I want to just have you repeat that. You're not saying cut back on the number of cops in New York City.
I have said time and again, I'm sustaining the number of officers.
Because I'm looking at my notes here, and Democrats 5 years ago, they were leveled. The party was leveled. You remember this, when some proposed defunding the police. It was a word that Democrats would come to rue, because they shouldn't have said that, because it was not what they meant, but they said, we can't do this anymore. That's not what you're saying.
No, I'm very clearly not defunding the police. I'm sustaining the headcount of officers, and I'm looking to actually address the crisis within the NYPD. We're seeing 200 officers leave the department every month. About a quarter are considering departure, and a leading cause is forced overtime. And one of the reasons for that forced overtime is you're asking officers to work doubles and triples, and they're doing that because you're asking them to do every job.
You've proposed addressing the homeless problems by helping them stay in empty retail space in some giant subways. Is that your plan?
That's not the plan.
Okay.
What I've said is...
So we've been wrong about that, right?
Yes, that's been a misconception, in that my proposal is addressing the fact that 75% of commercial units within the MTA are vacant. And those are units we could transform to provide immediate medical service to any New Yorker in need and connections to long-term care. The way that we have to serve homeless New Yorkers is not by keeping them within a subway station, but getting them out of a subway station to the actual services that they need. And part of that is also housing.
Let's talk about Israel and Palestine for a second. We live in a melting pot. Of course, your success is absolutely, makes it clear last night. Many New Yorkers, though, are worried about comments you have made in the past about the Middle East. Do you support the concept of Israel as a Jewish state?
I've said time and again that I support Israel's right to exist as a state with equal rights for all. And ultimately, my focus is on the 5 boroughs of this city. And I know, however, that New Yorkers' hopes and dreams and fears extend beyond these 5 boroughs. And while I have made very clear my belief in universal human rights and my commitments to that end, I've also made clear a commitment that I am looking to lead every New Yorker, not just those that agree with me, not just those that voted for me. And leadership means having the difficult conversations. It means extending yourself to understand those disagreements and also the complexities of them. And that is something that I look forward to living up to each and every day.
1 in 10 New Yorkers is Jewish. Many have concerns about your stance. You have a second, you can talk to them right now. What do you have to say to them?
Anti-Semitism is a real issue in this city and in this country, and there's no place for it. And I know it in the conversations I've had even with friends who have told me time and again about how that has worn on them. There was a Jewish man in Williamsburg just recently who told me how he locks the very door he used to keep unlocked for years. A friend of mine who, after the horrific war crime of October 7th, told me how he went for Shabbat services at his synagogue, and he was sitting when he heard the door open behind him, and a chill went up his spine as he turned around not knowing who was coming in. What did they mean for him?
Right.
And ultimately, what we need is a city and an administration that protects Jewish New Yorkers and protects every New Yorker. And part of that is actually the commitment to invest 800% increase in anti-hate crime programming, such that we can actually root out the bigotry in this city.
The world, I think, is safe to say, wants peace. Only a few on both sides of the Middle East wars look for continued war. I think that's safe to say. New York's melting pot is all about stopping wars and bringing people together. I think that if the world did what we did, it would be a better world. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I think that's one of the things that makes this city so special, is it's a city that brings the world together, and it's a testament to what's possible when we understand shared humanity at the cornerstone of everything that we do.
Okay. People have concerns about where you stand with President Trump. I want to go over this again. How wedded to the future of this city is he, and how wedded are you?
I am wedded to the future of this city. This is a city that I love, a city that I grew up in, and a city that I want to grow old in, like each and every other New Yorker. And what concerns me is that President Trump's interest in our city oftentimes is one to make an example of us, to attack the very fabric of what makes so many of us to be proud as New Yorkers. And I am going to be the mayor who will stand up for New Yorkers, no matter whether it's because Trump is attacking them on the basis of their documentation, their sexual orientation, or their politics.
Final question, if I could. You were born in Uganda, came here as a child. You're an immigrant success story, no question, at a time when immigration is such a lightning rod issue. Beyond that, really, what does your success represent to New Yorkers, and what message to immigrants who have come here from around the world, just like your parents did, to get to this great city?
You know, I am like 40% of New Yorkers in that I was born elsewhere, and I came to this city at the age of 7, and my favorite blocks in this city for quite some time were the blocks around Federal Plaza. It's where I got my citizenship, where I was sworn in as someone belonging to this country, and it was one of the greatest days of my life. And it's also where I got married to my wife, at the city clerk's office. And yet I know that those same blocks today represent something very different. They represent a fear that New Yorkers have, that they will not see their loved ones again. And that is a fear that is going against what makes so many of us love this city. And I am going to be not only the first immigrant mayor in generations, I'm going to be someone that stands up for each and every New Yorker to ensure that this possibility that in some ways I represent is one that every single person in the city can live out.
There are people who are going to come against you very strongly.
I expect that.
And you say to them what?
I say to them that I will not wither, I will not relent. I am committed, as I was on that first day, to a city for every New Yorker where all of us belong, where all of us can afford. And I know that these threats will not be easy to navigate. I have faced many a death threat. I continue to see threats against myself and my family. And yet I know ultimately that this is not representative of the city. The city is actually represented by a belief in our continued possibility.
Zohran, thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Real
Great
pleasure.
meeting you, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.